Do you find yourself wanting to give up every time you experience a hardship? If so, stay tuned and I will teach you how to prepare and conquer the battle. What is going on, everyone? We are back for another episode of Prospering with Christ. I hope that you had a wonderful week last week, and I hope that this week will be just as amazing to you as well. So, for today's episode, we are discussing how to prepare for the battle along with the blessing. I want to read you a quick story in the Bible, and if you want to follow along with me, go to 1 Chronicles chapter 19. It says, "Sometime after this, King Nahash of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanan became king. David said, 'I am going to show loyalty to Hanan because his father Nahash was always loyal to me.' So David sent messengers to express sympathy to Hanan about his father's death. But when David's ambassadors arrived in the land of Ammon, the Ammonite commander said to Hanan, 'Do you really think these men are coming here to honor your father?' 'No, David has sent them to spy out the land so they can come and conquer it.' So Hanan seized David's ambassadors and shaved them, cut off their robes at the buttocks, and sent them back to David in shame. When David heard what had happened to the men, he sent messengers to tell them, 'Stay at Jericho until your beards grow out and then come back.' For they felt deep shame because of their appearance. When the people of Ammon realized how seriously they had angered David, Hanan and the Ammonites sent 75,000 pounds of silver to hire chariots and chariotees from Aram-Naharaim, Aram-Maacah, and Zobah. They also hired 32,000 chariots and secured the support of the king of Maacah and his army. These forces camped at Medeba, where they were joined by the Ammonite troops that Hanan had recruited from his own towns. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and all his warriors to fight them. The Ammonite troops came out and drew up their battle lines at the entrance of the city, while the other kings positioned themselves to fight in the open fields. When Joab saw that he would have to fight on both of the front and the rear, he chose some of Israel's elite troops and placed them under his personal command to fight the Arameans in the fields. He left the rest of the army under the command of his brother Abishai, who was to attack the Ammonites. 'If the Arameans are too strong for me, then come over and help me,' Joab told his brother. 'And if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I will help you. Be courageous. Let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. May the Lord's will be done.' When Joab and his troops attacked, the Arameans began to run away. And when the Ammonites saw the Arameans running, they also ran from Abishai and retreated into the city. Then Joab returned to Jerusalem." So as I was reading this passage, there were two verses that stood out to me. The first one was verse 2. David wanted to be a blessing. He was expecting for his good deed to bring a good result. He had no idea that him moving into the direction of a blessing, that him doing something good, that him trying to bless someone else, that him trying to help someone else was going to bring a battle. But what also stood out to me is that even though he wasn't expecting his good deed to bring about a battle, him and his troops were still prepared. When they realized that the Arameans and the Ammonites were spending money to get other tribes to help them come and fight against David and his people, they did not run from fear. They were not blindsided. I noticed that they had a strategy. If you look at verse 10, it says that Joab realized that he had to fight on both the front and the rear, and he was not blindsided. He immediately came up with a plan. He said that he was going to take one side and he was going to have this side under his command, and his brother was going to take the other side. And if it got too hard for them, they were going to come and they were going to help each other. That is called a strategy. The fact that they had a strategy is what helped them conquer the battle, is what helped them defeat the others and win this battle. The reason why you have not made it out of your situation, why you have not made it out of your circumstance, is because you have only been preparing for the blessing and you have not been thinking about the battle. You hear so many people talk about preparation comes before the blessing, preparation comes before the breakthrough, and we automatically assume that preparation is just God getting us prepared on how to handle that blessing, God getting us prepared on how to be the type of person who can sustain that blessing. But there's another type of preparation that we need to be focused on, and that is the preparation of the battle. And the problem with us and why we are stuck in our circumstances is because we only think about the blessing. And so when the devil sends attacks, when the battle comes, when the storms come, we are blindsided and we have no idea how to get out. We have no idea how to make it through to the other side. 90% of the time, there is going to be a battle that comes before your blessing. And it's time for you to stop being blindsided. It's time for you to stop giving up because you feel like you don't know what to do. And it's time for you to start working with God and preparing to fight, to start working with God and getting the strategies on how to make it through to the other side, getting the strategies on how to conquer this, getting the strategies on what to do if the battle gets harder than what you expected. Because remember with Joab, he not only created a plan for the original battle, but he also created a plan on what they were going to do if the battle got too hard, if the battle was harder than what they expected. His plan was that they were going to call for each other and they were going to come to the other side and help each other out. He created a plan for each step in the battle. He was prepared for any and everything that was going to come his way. And it is time for you to start acting in that same manner. It is time for you to stop being blindsided by hardships, stop being blindsided by setbacks, and start being prepared and ready to conquer them. If you want to start preparing for the battle, then you have to start asking yourself some tough questions. The first question that you have to ask yourself is, have you even accepted the fact that there's going to be a battle? Have you even accepted the fact that you're going to encounter a battle on your road to your breakthrough? I know that this question seems like common sense, but if we're being honest, a lot of us like to live in denial. A lot of us like to tell ourselves these narratives of how things are going to work out. We like to tell ourselves that we're doing things God's way, so of course the road is going to be easy. We're following God's plan, so of course there's not going to be any setbacks. We're doing exactly what God told us to do, so of course everything is going to work out. Of course we're not going to experience any failures. Of course there's not going to be a battle. All we're going to do is walk to our breakthrough. All we're going to do is skip to our breakthrough. We're not going to go through anything on this road. We're not going to experience anything on this road. We're not going to have any attacks on this road. We like to be in denial and we like to tell ourselves these things because we don't want to accept that there's going to be hardships. We don't want to accept that there's going to be a battle that we need to fight. But I want to remind you that that is not how things work. If you read your Bible, then you will notice that majority of the Bible is people going through battles. Majority of the Bible is the Israelites going to war. Majority of the Bible is people experiencing hardships before their breakthroughs. So this false narrative that we preach and we teach in the Christian community, this false narrative that we tell ourselves that everything is going to be easy and nothing bad is going to happen and we're not going to experience anything along the way, is a lie. And the first step that we have to take when it comes to preparing for the battle is accepting the fact that there's going to be a battle. We have to remember that this battle that God is putting us through, this battle that God is taking us to, is not to punish us, is not to hinder us, but is to strengthen us, is to grow us, is to make us stronger, is to make us more mature, is to make us more equipped, is to teach us some things along the way. Accept that nothing in life comes easy. If it was easy, then everybody will be walking in it. If it was easy, then everybody will be living that type of life. If it was easy, then everybody would have it, but they don't, because there's two different type of people in the world. There's people who encounter battles and they give up, and there's people who encounter battles and they keep going and they fight until they get the thing that they told God that they actually wanted. Accept the battle. The second question that you have to ask yourself is, are you equipping yourself to be ready to fight this battle? We have to be honest with ourselves. Faith without works is dead. And so, yes, God is going to guide us through this battle, but we have to partner with God and we have to do our part in faith in order to fully win and conquer the thing that we're going through. I want to share a revelation with you. When we hear people talking about conquering a battle, they normally use the story of David and Goliath as an example. But recently, I was reading the story of David and Goliath, and there was something that really stood out to me that I never hear anybody talking about. So if you know the story, you know that Goliath is a giant and David is a 9-year-old little boy, and Saul sent David out there to defeat Goliath, and everybody felt like it was impossible because David was a little boy. He was only 9 years old, and Goliath was this big giant and he had this full experience, being a soldier and everything, but David was able to kill him with nothing but a rock and a slingshot. But as I was reading the story, there was something that stood out to me. David asked Saul if he could go and fight Goliath. And Saul was not taking David serious because he was like, you're a child. This man is a giant. It's not going to work. And David said something in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 34 through 37. And I'm going to read to you what he said. He said, but David persisted. I have been taking care of my father's sheep and goats, he said. When a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I have done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too. For he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. Then finally, Saul consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. We talk about the story of David and Goliath all the time, but what stood out to me is that the reason why David was able to actually defeat Goliath is because he had spent years preparing. God had him in a position working with animals that was equipping him with the skills to handle this position in a future season. David was able to defeat Goliath because he had been equipping himself with the skills to do so. That is why he was confident. That is why he was begging, because he knew that he was qualified. He knew that he was strong enough. He knew that he was skilled enough to defeat and conquer this battle. What is it going to take for you to conquer this battle? And how are you equipping yourself with the skills to do so? The next question is, do you have a plan of how you're going to approach the battle, and do you have backup systems? Think of the story that I told you about Joab. Joab did not go into this battle blindly. He had a plan of what he was going to do. He had a plan of what he was going to do if the battle got harder. He did not go into there blindly. He did not go into it ignorantly. He had a strategy and he had a plan. In the story with David, he had a plan. If you look at verse 38, it says that Saul tried to give David his own armor of a helmet, of a coat, of a sword. And David said, I cannot go in these. I'm not used to them. He said that all he needed is 5 smooth stones and a stream, and he put them in his bag and he left. He had a plan. He knew what wouldn't work. He knew what he was equipped to do. He knew what he was equipped to use, and he had a plan before he went into the battle. And the reason why some of us struggle so hard to conquer the battle is because we are going in without a plan, a strategy, and we are going in blindly. We don't know what to do. We're caught off guard, and that is why we give up. Are you enjoying this episode so far? Is this episode teaching you how to prepare for the battle? If so, then I want you to do me two favors. Favor number one, I want you to leave a review. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this episode. Leave an honest review and let me and others know how you are enjoying the show. And favor number two, if you know anyone who struggles with hardships, maybe they've been going through tough times and they don't know how to make it out to the other side, then I want you to send this episode to them. Let this episode motivate and encourage them the same way that it is motivating and encouraging you. Now let's get back to the show. Preparing for the battle is going to save you in the long run. Some of us could have been at our breakthrough years ago, months ago, decades ago, but we have been stuck and we have been wasting time because we did not realize that we needed to prepare for the fight. We walked into the fight blindly. We walked into the fight without expecting it, and that fight knocked us down. That fight defeated us when we were supposed to defeat it. And some of us have been stuck in this place and we don't know how to get out. Some of us have given up on our breakthrough. We have given up on the things that God promised us. We have given up on our goals because we feel like there is no way that things are going to work out. And God is saying everything is going to work out. The problem is you don't know how to work it out. The problem is you don't know how to get to the other side. The problem is you have been focusing on the wrong things. You have just been focusing on what you want, but you have not been prepared for what it takes to get what you want. You have been focusing on where you want to be, but you have not prepared for what you have to encounter on that journey to get there. Preparing for the battle is going to save you so much wasted time. You know what else preparing for the battle is going to save? It's going to save your faith. Because for some of us, we started this journey full of faith. We trusted everything that God told us that he was going to do. We stepped out and we did what he said. We obeyed his plans. We followed his ways, and we failed, and things got worse, and we experienced hardships, and it put us in this place where our faith has died. It put us in this place where we are scared to trust God again. It put us in this place where we are scared to try again. It put us in this place where we feel hopeless. We feel like there's no more hope for us. We feel like God is a liar. God wasn't going to do what he promised to do for us. But when you prepare for the battle, it saves your faith. You will no longer feel hopeless because you're walking into this battle. You're walking into every single step with a strategy on how to conquer it. So now, because you have that strategy on how to conquer it, you see a way out. You realize that this is just a season. You realize that this hardship was just a stepping stone to your breakthrough, and you see a way out. You see that there is something on the other side, and it motivates you. It sparks your faith. It boosts your faith, and it keeps you trusting God. And most importantly, preparing for the battle is going to save your blessing. Because ever since you've been stuck in this place, you have wanted to give up. Your faith has died. You stopped trying. And every time that you make the decision to operate out of that, you kill what God had for you. You create distance with what God is trying to bring you. You think that God lied to you. You think that God wasn't going to ever do what he said. You think that God was playing with you, but God is saying, I intended to give this to you, but you making the decision to operate in that unbelief, you making the decision to feel hopeless, you making the decision to give up, to turn around, to try something else is the reason why you have not seen me move, is the reason why you have not seen my promises come to pass. But when you make the decision to prepare for the battle, when you make the decision to prepare to fight, when you make the decision to prepare for the hardships that's going to come on this journey, it is not only going to save you time, it's not only going to save your faith, but it's going to save your blessing. It's going to put you in position where you actually get the thing that you have been praying and seeking God for. And I know I said this already, but this just popped into my head. The most important thing that preparing for the battle is going to save for you is your relationship with God. Because when you get to a place where you feel like you have wasted time, your faith has died, you feel hopeless, you don't see God moving in your life, it affects your relationship with him. You feel like he's playing with you, he's disappointing you, he's giving you broken promises, and it affects how much you want to pray. It affects how much time you want to spend with him. It affects how you want to live your life for him. It affects your relationship with him. And so when you make the decision to prepare for the battle, it saves your relationship with God. So you have to make the decision. Do you want to continue to keep giving up and keep feeling stuck in your hardships? Or do you want to create a plan to prepare and conquer the battle? If you want to conquer the battle, the first thing that you have to do is you have to think like the enemy. If we're being honest, the main person who's going to be attacking you on this journey is the enemy. And so what you want to do is you want to get into the enemy's head and you want to think like him. How would he attack you? What would he send your way? How will he try to distract you? How will he knock you off course? What obstacles are going to arise on this journey? And start preparing and creating a plan for those attacks. How will he attack you? I'll give you an example. Through your mind. He'll start telling you that it's impossible. He'll start telling you that you can't do it. You have to prepare to have those thoughts come into your head. How will he distract you? Maybe you are struggling to get over an ex and God told you to let that ex go, but you still love that ex, but you're trying to be obedient to God and remove that ex from your life. One of the ways that the enemy might attack you is by bringing this person back into your life. Maybe you're trying to transition from your job to starting a business. And maybe one of the ways that the enemy might attack you is your job finding out about your business and firing you. You have to get into the enemy's mind and you have to ask yourself, how would he attack me? What would he do? What would go wrong? Because it's not likely for everything to go right. And once you start understanding how these attacks might occur, then you start to prepare for them. You start to create plans for them so that when they come, they're not knocking you off your course. When they come, they're not blindsiding you. You are ready and prepared for them. The next thing that you want to do is you want to create a plan for surprise attacks. Because if we're being honest, you do not know everything that the enemy is going to do. You cannot read the future. You don't know what's going to happen. So there might be things that the enemy sends your way that you weren't prepared for. You didn't even think would happen. And so you have to create a plan for surprise attacks. And the number one thing that should be in that plan is seeking God. Every time that you get a surprise attack, every time that something blindly throws you off course, you need to go to God. You need to tell him, this is what happened. What is your plan for me to get out? What is your plan for me to make it to the other side? We don't give up. We don't feel hopeless. We don't feel stuck. We seek God for a way out. Have you ever dreamed of making your voice heard and sharing your message with the world? Well, it's time to turn that dream into a reality by starting your very own podcast. I understand that many aspiring podcasters are held back by the worries of cost, complexity, and the time it takes to launch a podcast. That is why I'm excited to announce my new training program that has all the tools and knowledge you need to launch your very own podcast for free. My training will guide you through every single step of your podcast journey. You will learn how to plan, release, market, and grow your podcast from start to finish. So if you're ready to take a leap of faith and share your message with the world, click the link in the description below to access my new podcast training. Now let's get back to the show. The third thing that you want to do is you want to prepare your emotions. Because let's be honest, hardships and bad circumstances suck. You're going to feel depressed. You're going to feel angry. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel sad. You have to prepare for those emotions. Because a lot of the time, the reason why we give up and we feel hopeless and all those things is because we're operating from those negative emotions. So we have to say, when this attack happens, I know I'm going to feel like this, and I'm going to create a plan on how to overcome that feeling. I am going to create a plan on how to continue to follow and trust God in that feeling so that I can still see my breakthrough and make it to the other side. And doing this now is perfect because right now you're not sad. Right now you're not frustrated. Right now you're not angry. Right now you might be in a good mood. And one thing that I know about being in a good mood is that you have more clarity. So you can prepare for those negative emotions with more clarity. See, when you're actually feeling sad, when you're actually feeling depressed, when you're actually feeling frustrated, it's going to be hard to fully understand how to get out of this feeling. But when you're preparing for these feelings, when you feel okay, you're going to have more clarity and you're going to be able to discern God more to prepare for those emotions. And so as you're creating a plan to prepare for the battle, don't forget to prepare for the emotions that the battle is going to bring upon you. And the last thing that you want to do is you want to make detours a part of your preparation. What are you going to do if this step that you're trying to take doesn't work? What are you going to do if the battle was harder than what you expected? You have to create plan B steps. If this way doesn't work, I'm going to go this way. If this road is closed, I'm going to put in my GPS and try and find another route to take to get to my destination. You have to plan for detours. You have to plan for things to be harder than what you thought. You have to plan for attacks to be harder than what you expected. And you have to create detours to get you out of those circumstances. So remember, you have to accept that there's going to be a battle. You have to start equipping yourself with the skills to handle and conquer the battle. And you have to create a plan of how you're going to approach the battle and create backup plans if that original plan doesn't work. Preparing for the battle is going to save you so much time. It's going to save your faith. It's going to save your blessing, and it's going to save your relationship with God. And if you want to prepare and conquer the battle, you have to start thinking like the enemy. Create plans for surprise attacks. Create plans on how you're going to feel and the emotions that's going to arise while you're in the battle. And make detours a part of your preparation. And so my action step for you today is I want you to think of one blessing you've been trying to get. And I want you to think like the enemy and ask yourself, how is he going to attack you on this road and on this journey to that breakthrough? But that is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe and you leave a notification every time a new episode is released. Also, leave a review and let me and others know how you enjoyed the show. And if you want to stay connected to me, make sure that you follow me on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at Prospering with Christ. But that is all I have for you today, and I will see you next week.